And just like that, a simple passing of time takes us from a rough draft to what hopefully is a final masterpiece. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay, and tonight was nothing like the last two nights in the sense that I actually got home at a decent hour. So, doesn't mean that there might not be a total disaster in a couple of weeks in early December, as some of the folks at the 9 to 5 are complaining about, or in advance or something along those lines. But that's the kind of world we live in when the pandemic disrupts things and stuff along those lines. We found out tonight that we have our first positive case at the facility, not from somebody that any of us have been around any time in the last week or so, but somebody who did the right thing and started getting symptoms, stayed home, and then found out later, yeah, they had this thing. So now, of course, the sanitation crews came in, cleaned out all the areas where they used to work and things along those lines. So, look, you know, people can call me paranoid all they want. I probably am exhibiting levels of paranoia towards this thing that rival that of anti-vaxxers and tinfoil heads who think everybody's out to get them. But quite frankly, I think this is probably one of the few times when this level of paranoia actually makes any sense. So, and it's perfectly in line with science to be paranoid about this, about the pandemic. So I will gladly go along with what science has to say about all of this, and what science has to tell me is that the two rules that I've had all throughout this mess are still in play. Number one, you don't know who has this thing because it has a 5-day or so incubation period where someone is pre-symptomatic. And number two, you don't know what this thing's going to do to you. There are some people where it is kind of like a really bad cold, and there's some people that end up on ventilators. You know, that kind of randomness. And it's not just the respiratory symptoms either. You also have to worry about cardiovascular symptoms, like blood clots or other stuff like that, or strokes or something like that. Crazy stuff. And of course, we also have to worry about, if you survive this thing, what's your life going to be like afterwards? You know, are you going to get winded? You know, are you going to get winded or something? Now, the latest thing that the scientists are looking at is, does this age your brain to the point where you start having mental health issues as a result of having this thing? But at this point, I just want to stick with what the professionals are saying. And quite frankly, the professionals have given me more than enough reason to be cautious. We're going to be talking about this situation with Twitch, because Twitch has gone on a PR spree, and they sent an email out to creators and all kinds of other stuff like that. And there's a blog post and all kinds of other things. We're going to take a look at that. I don't know if I want to take a look at that during these late night discussions on YouTube, or if I want to do Friday Live at 5 on Twitch, or perhaps both, because of the endemic audience on both platforms. But before we get to any discussion at all, and possibly some background music, I gotta talk about what happened with the last stream. I wound up disabling the comments on it after converting it over to a spin-off video on YouTube. And that was for one very specific reason. I talked about the situation with the 9 to 5ers, and somebody in the comments was asking questions about what company it was where I was encountering these problems. And it is obviously somebody who is new to this channel and doesn't realize that I've been referring to wherever I work or whatever with generic terms like the 9 to 5 or 9 to 5ers for years. And it's for very good reason, not just because, as some might think, oh, you might get fired if no. There's a lot that's in play when it comes to the way I handle this need to know information about what's going on, and my reactions to it and what I think of it. First off, you have to think about professionalism, keeping things professional. What business wants somebody on their team that's going to broadcast every tiny little mistake they make over the internet because it gives them content to make YouTube videos about? Professionalism, also privacy for individuals that are involved. And of course, I know about those YouTube channels that consist entirely of some vlogger bashing some employer they used to work for, and then they turn into full-time YouTubers because, surprise, surprise, who wants to hire somebody like that? So no, that's not the right thing to do on social media. Companies are trying to figure out what they should let people do on social media and what they should intervene on and all kinds of other stuff. That's still something that's being figured out. But I don't want to be ahead of, I don't want to jump to any conclusions about things. The biggest thing that anybody needs to realize with regards to me talking about the 9-to-5ers or anybody that I work for or with is that the concepts in play are way more important than the people. It's not the people that are the problem as much as it is the behavior. Even if the people are the problem, the behavior is the catalyst to why I'm having these discussions in the first place. This is for the people that are new with regards to this 9-to-5er stuff and the way I talk about stuff that goes on at jobs and things along those lines. It's not just about professionalism and protecting people's privacy and things like that. It's also about, quite simply, the difference between objective and subjective. Objective, for those of you who don't know, is something that exists independently of you, your feelings, your experiences, and your opinions. And subjective stuff is stuff that's all you. Your emotions, your feelings, your opinions, stuff that is very much you. And not necessarily something that other people can see for themselves. It's always better to keep things objective, because when you're trying to get things done in a business environment or elsewhere, you have to think about whether or not the other person can see things from your point of view, and the easiest way for them to do that is to point out stuff that they can go look at themselves. So that way, if they still get belligerent or something like that, you can definitely say that they're doing a cover-up, or they're sweeping something under the rug, or they're playing dumb, or they're deadpanning your thoughts, ideas, and what have you. So it is always more important to talk about the thing than the person. From a business perspective, if you have a bad employee and you fire them, if you hire somebody else and they have the exact same problem, you're right back to square one. So nothing has changed. You just have a new person to get annoyed by. But what is persistent in all of those cases is the behavior that you don't want on your team. So it's the behavior that's the problem. You need to talk about the thing and not the person. And there's a whole discussion I can go into about why, as a business, it's not a good idea to have personal vendettas against former employees and things like that. If something doesn't work out, you let them go, and that's that. You don't chase after them or try to cancel them or try to destroy their life or anything, because personal revenge is always bad for your business. It's a whole discussion I could have on just that alone, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. Bottom line, cold ones, baby. Bottom line, with regards to the 9-to-5ers, not only is it about professionalism and it's about privacy, or about privacy for the individuals involved, but I keep things need to know in those cases specifically because it is more important that we talk about the thing than the person. If I'm having a problem with a business that has narcissism baked into its operations, the problem is the narcissism. We can fire managers all year long and never have any manager in the position for more than whatever if people want to go on firing sprees to fix this problem. But unless you get a manager that's not narcissistic, you're never going to fix the problem. If you keep hiring narcissists, you're never going to get anywhere. So, plus, when it comes to your credibility when you're talking about stuff, it is extremely important that you realize that the minute you start naming and shaming people or organizations, whatever points that you make that are actually true can actually be downplayed as just you're a disgruntled employee. That's just your opinion. It's just a personal squabble between you and that person. And so one of the easiest ways to get yourself not taken seriously when you bring up serious issues like this is to turn it into something personal or something subjective. So when I talk about stuff related to the 9-to-5ers, it's not even the company that matters. It's just the behavior or what's happening in general. And this can happen anywhere. One of the first things you do when you get yourself some experience in life, one of the first things you'll notice is that people are not really special. You know, I don't care what your mom told you, or I don't care what your teachers told you. I don't care what your parents told you. I don't care what anybody told you when you were growing up. The fact remains, people are not special. If you want to be special, you have to work really hard to actually be special. That's the way life works. And when it comes to this whole thing about nobody's special, the sooner you realize that some jerk boss or coworker or whatever is not special, the sooner you can acknowledge the reality that it's their behavior that's the problem. And this can show up with anybody. You could have 6 different jobs at 6 different companies, and there will be this one set of behavior from these kinds of people that you're going to run into over and over and over again. So you're basically going to go through all that hassle of leaving jobs to get nowhere, instead of saying, look, it's the behavior that's the problem. I went to this company to get away from so-and-so. Oh, this person's just like them. And so the merry-go-round continues. So if people want to try and ask probing questions in the comments about naming and shaming what company I'm having the problems with, they will be banned very, very quickly. Because, again, to have an account on one of these platforms, you need to abide by the community guidelines and terms of service. One of those community guidelines, terms of service, is to not invade the privacy of others. Or, in this case, try to trick people into divulging private information. What matters is what I'm talking about, not the individuals or organizations involved. Because this stuff can show up anywhere. I hope I'm clear on that. Hey, speaking of organizations, let's talk about Twitch here. And let's get some music going as well. We're going to be talking about deflections and stuff like that. What's the name of the stream? I got it on my live control here. Twitch, DMCAmageddon, deep linking, deflection, and damage control. So one of the things that we need to talk about with regards to what's going on with Twitch right now is that Twitch has a credibility problem. Twitch right now has brought back something that was a faux pas in the 1990s on the internet. And that would be deep linking. Since our previous discussion, which was more like me venting about having a bad night, but I still talked about some concepts there, I actually posted on my Twitter, twitter.com/MultimediaJay, a link to one of the exposed clips, so to speak, that has been resurrected via deep linking. So what is deep linking? Deep linking is something that it was a faux pas on the internet in the 1990s. It's now apparently something that can happen with apps or something like that. It's when you link to an asset of something instead of the something. So suppose an actress, good-looking actress, looks gorgeous in a bikini, has a web page in the 1990s. She posts a picture of herself in her bikini. Everybody loves it. And then people are deep linking her bikini picture on their websites. The bandwidth on her website goes up. Any advertising that she's running to try and, pay for the server hosting is bypassed, and it's overall just a bad thing to do to somebody else. It'd be better if they hosted the image on their own. Assuming, of course, they didn't get DMCA'd for hosting copyrighted content unauthorized and whatnot. But this is the 90s we're talking about. It's one of those early faux pas that you weren't supposed to do in the text-based world of HTML back in the days of dial-up, even pre-56K, where your web browser would have a special button you had to press in order to load images. That's how far back we're going. Most of it was text and HTML and GIFs and file formats that were designed specifically to be dial-up friendly and compress very well on the internet, because internet was slow as molasses. And to add insult to injury, usually billed by the hour back during these heydays of CompuServe, AOL, etc. back in the dial-up era. So when web hosting started out, it was basically renting server space, and if there was a big load on the server, you might get charged extra or something for bandwidth. Bandwidth costs were a thing, and so websites were talking about bandwidth theft. You never wanted to do bandwidth theft. One of the ways to do that was by deep linking an asset on a web page instead of the web page itself. So in today's world, with regards to what's going on with stuff on Twitch is actually, it is possible to look at clips, even stuff that's been deleted, and people think that, that the robots are being programmed by RIAA and rights holder organizations to DMCA people by citing these as stuff, as something that's going on here. And Twitch has been tweeting all over the place, trying to defend themselves in the midst of all of this mess. But the thing is, it's not the issue. The issue is not that this exists. The issue is that it's publicly available. Twitch should have firewalled all of these, like clips.mediaassets2.twitch.tv. If you try to direct access stuff, you should be getting an HTTP 503 forbidden error. But here we are, 3:30 in the morning on Thursday, a day or two after this posted. And if I go to my browser and link it up, well, maybe I shouldn't. Let's stay full camera here. And this is copyrighted music, so we're just going to mute all sound sources. I'm going to verify this. So we're going to go quiet for a second here. Let's turn off the audio and the mic. Yes, that is correct. Poop da whoop, sha whoop da boop, whatever it is, the Kanye West song is still there. The clip that got Jake and Big DMCA'd is still there. Now, if Twitch was maintaining some kind of documentation network, they should obviously not have it be publicly accessible. I mean, this is a basic internet faux pas here, and it's also potentially a privacy issue. If people can find the workaround URL to access stuff that you delete, that is a major, major problem. And so Twitch sent around this letter, this email, but they also made it into a blog post and they tweeted the living daylights out of it over on Twitter. They're basically copying everything into tweets. So it's a corporate PR campaign. So we're going to take a look at some of this here. Let's see. Your frustration and confusion with music-related copyright issues is completely justified. Things can and should be better for creators than they've been recently. The next few tweets will outline our plan for being better partners to creators. Now, let's not forget, folks, Twitch needs to do something to stay viable at this point. Because I'm telling you right now, with all the paranoia that exists in the world of Twitch streamers nowadays, with, oh, we're not going to have VODs on our channel, we're not going to have clips on our channel, it's Twitch is just a venue, I'm not actually going to do anything that's anywhere close to evergreen on Twitch ever again, all this crap. With all this that's going on, Twitch stands to lose a ton of content. Just in the last day, I've seen 2 more streamers talk about they have too many DMCA strikes, or they're blanking their channels, things like that. And that's just the folks that I follow. Never mind what's going on in the general streamosphere or whatever it is. So, yeah, well, here's the thing, though. The big thing, and we totally should make a graphic for this. Twitch does not have a reason apart from streaming for you to be there. Before all this happened, Twitch was largely about streaming. The video, evergreen, anything on Twitch was a total disaster. The search engine barely worked, if at all. And even if it did work, people are not creating content on Twitch specifically that would work well with a search engine. So on YouTube, you can design a video that plays nicely with the algorithms and answers a question that people might have. The algorithms pick it up and it shows up in search results. Like, you know, what happens if Superman slaps me in the face or something like that? Just about any question out there, someone can make a video that answers the question and it can go around and it will work nicely with the search engine. But not on Twitch. I mean, Twitch is game streaming for the most part, with some just chatting IRL type stuff, but it's totally not YouTube. VODs, highlights, and because of this, the discoverability differences between Twitch and YouTube, because of the difference in technology between Twitch and YouTube, it was already common wisdom among streamers to not even bother with the highlights feature and just send their VODs over to YouTube or something. So before all of this happened, Twitch had a content drought or content shortage in terms of being competitive versus YouTube and Facebook on the evergreen front. And that has not gotten any better, as so many people out there have decided to delete all clips and VODs and not actually make content for Twitch anymore. Or just use Twitch as a venue and send everything off to YouTube. Twitch has very robust export features, and some streamers are deciding to use them. So everything that Twitch had a problem with regards to their content has gotten worse as a result of this, as streamers are so paranoid about DMCA that they won't keep anything on their Twitch channel. So anything other than the current stream, and we talked about this with the de facto YouTubers, anything other than the current stream is going off the platform and taking the traffic with them. So the problems, some of the problems that Twitch was already having have been made worse by what's going on. Some of the problems Twitch have, they are worse now. So now think about it this way. I'm curious what that'll do to the numbers for hours watched versus hours streamed if people aren't keeping any content on there. So now you're going to see numbers in like the Streamlabs, Stream Elements quarterlies on Twitch specifically that are more reflective of live only, because so many creators out there are so paranoid they're not keeping VODs anymore. Some of them are, and I think they're setting themselves up for another wave of bans and stuff like that. But Twitch has a mess to figure out, quite frankly. Let's look at some of the stuff that they're posting. I'm going to open up their blog entry here. Music-related copyright claims in Twitch circa November 11. What a thing to put out on Veterans Day. Let's relink our browser here. We're doing Avast Secure for this, so let's just link it in. Boom. No dark mode, Twitch. Come on. Okay, let's look at this. Your frustration and confusion with recent music-related copyright issues is completely justified. Wait a minute. Okay, that's... What? How come that didn't reset it? Reset to 100%. Okay. Your frustration... Well, that might be too small. Bring it up, bring it up, bring it up until it's brushing up against my... Your frustration and confusion with recent copyright issues is completely justified. This is also in the email that went out. Things can and should be better for creators than they have been recently, and this post outlines our next steps to get there. Moving forward, we'll be more transparent with what's happening and what tools and resources we're building to help. Yeah, that's one of the things that Twitch needs right now, because over on YouTube, and this is something that I brought up on Twitter, over on YouTube, there are alternatives to strikes only. Now, here's the issue. What happened to Jake and Bake, and the clip is still there. I have it linked on my Twitter. You can always go watch it. Is that some car or whatever was blasting Kanye music. It got picked up by some automated system that is used to send out DMCAs, and Jake and Bake got DMCA'd for it. Moving aside from this for a bit to talk about this, one of the most important things that I can bring up with regards to anything that these rights holder organizations do, like create these kinds of systems to automatically crawl for DMCA violations. Twitch brags about how they like to... Well, number one thing that Twitch is good at versus YouTube is keeping a human face on what they do. They don't have the technology. So again, we're back to... Is it in here? It's not in here. We're back to the diamond between people and technology. If you don't have the technology, you're stuck doing things the people way. But in this case, it's actually something good, because you see from Twitch more of a human face with how they address their creators versus what YouTube does, and versus YouTube and their automated systems. So that's one of the things. That's one of the things that Twitch can do here. That Twitch can do better than YouTube at this point if they want to pursue that. But one of the problems is that they don't have tools and resources versus YouTube. And as much as Twitch brags about taking context into account when it comes to DMCA and disciplinary action, there is no chance under the current federal law for Twitch to do that when an automated system is sending the claims. This is another reason why Twitch needs to develop some kind of alternative, even if it's a blocking system. Twitch needs to develop a blocking system for DMCA that provides an alternative to issuing strikes all the time, because what they have right now, the status quo, completely destroys their ability to do what it is that they're bragging about. Twitch brags about how they take the context into account when deciding on disciplinary action. They're always looking at the context of the situation. They can't do that when the RIAA or a rights holder organization is running automated stuff to crawl for violations and auto send the notifications. Now you're at a point where the RIAA's bot system will send the DMCA for somebody's loud stereo playing copyrighted music in the middle of your IRL stream, and there's nothing Twitch can do about that, because to maintain the safe harbor provisions that protect them from being sued as a platform for the content they host, they have to take stuff down when they receive a takedown notice. So you can see how Twitch, kind of in a roundabout way, is punishing their creators for their own lack of technology, not directly, but because there's no alternative to strikes, rights holders take everything into their own hands, and they may build a crappy system that will false flag somebody because of a loud car stereo. And hey, the content is in the broadcast. The Twitch has to do something about that. So Twitch is completely neutered in terms of their usual commitment to context. They can't even bother with the context when it's an automated system that's sending the DMCA notification. Let's continue here. Probably go through all the cold ones by the time I'm done here. Copyright law and the DMCA are not smaller, simple topics, so this won't be a brief post. We'll do our best to keep the legalese to a minimum. Yes, they will. It's a liability thing if they appear to be giving legal advice. There's bound to be technical terms here and there. A quick review of what DMCA is. Yeah, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, etc. Recent DMCA notifications. If you want to see this, check out the blog that Twitch has linked on their Twitter. Until May of this year, streamers receive fewer than 50 music-related DMCA notifications every year. But in May, representatives from the major record labels started sending thousands of DMCA notifications each week. I don't think there's a call center or a giant office building of people doing this. I think the representatives are systems that are flagging content and sending the takedowns automatically. I don't think any company with any brains in their heads would hire tons of people, no matter how cheap the labor is, to crawl Twitch looking for violations. No way, Jose. This is another reason why Twitch needs to have a system that gives rights holders alternatives in order to bring all of this in-house again. Because right now, your channel can get banned because of a badly functioning scanner system where some automated system is finding the loud car stereo in your clips and DMCAing you for it. That can't continue. This is Twitch's lack of technology hurting creators. And the problem is, if Twitch tried to do something about it, their safe harbor status is threatened if it looks like they're tolerating copyright infringement. So now the whole platform could be vulnerable. This is not an easy situation for Twitch people to figure out. Hopefully they do, because I like the competition. Those of us YouTube veterans out there, we've seen a world where YouTube had no viable competition and just how lazy YouTube got with the lack of competition. So Facebook and Twitch being a thing is still a good thing because it keeps YouTube on their toes, even if we prefer YouTube over the other two platforms. We continue to receive large batches of notifications. We don't expect that to slow down. Yeah. Automated systems. The difference is that unlike YouTube, where the automated systems that run badly are internal, now these are external systems. And quite frankly, does the RIAA have any motivation whatsoever under the current federal law to ever improve those systems? Probably not. So it is imperative that Twitch roll out an alternative to strikes that RIAA could use, like an audio blocking system, like a blocking system or something. So that way, there's something that rights holders can do besides issue strikes. That's how YouTube progress with these sorts of things, and that's how Twitch is going to progress, if they want to progress at all. If you play recorded music on your stream, you need to stop doing that. If you haven't already, you should review your historical VODs and clips that may have music in them and delete any archives that might. We're surprised at the sudden avalanche of notifications, as many of you were. You also realize we need to provide streamers with more educational programs and content management tools to help you deal with the unprecedented number of notifications coming in. So while we continue to remove content, we understood VODs and clips from years ago may not necessarily reflect your current approach to music. So therefore, we pause the processing of strikes. This is the ass covering stuff that Twitch has already done in the various emails they've sent out to creators who are affected by all of this. Not more than 99% of the notifications were for tracks that streamers were playing in the background of their stream. Why? Do we know that it was always background music and not loud car stereo or something like that? So you can read this on your own if you want, etc. I want to see what Twitch is actually doing about it, not a restatement of the same stuff that's been in email after email after email for the last several weeks. So yeah, how to avoid don't play copyrighted music, new products and tools. Made improvements, enabling to mass delete stuff. Yeah, we know that. We'll expand the use of technology to detect copyrighted audio, give you a more granular ways to manage your archive instead of just delete all. We'll make it easier for you to control what audio from your live streams will show up in your recorded content. Soundtrack by Twitch has some of this technology built into it and will work to make it available for everyone, regardless of whether you want to use Soundtrack, for which we've cleared all necessary rights or music from others that provide rights-cleared music. So this is the thing. Exporting what Twitch soundtrack has isn't going to fix anything, because essentially it's going to be the Twitch soundtrack problem all over again. Twitch is not going to have the best version of your content if they do that. The live, suppose, you know, you have like, oh, I'm playing this while I'm live. I don't get live DMCA'd for copyrighted music. And now the VOD has no music. Yeah, okay, then you send it off to YouTube. You put in something from the YTAL. So the YouTube version of your content now has music. Twitch ends up with the worst version of what it is that you made. Who's going to watch that? And what happens when Twitch gets a reputation for having the worst version of something? Need to give you the ability to actually review your content when you receive a notification, in addition to the details in our takedown notifications, who the claimant is, how the claimant can be contacted. We also need to help you more easily file counter notifications if you believe you have the rights to use the content, because you've secured a license, believe it's a fair use, etc. Claimant does not control the rights, Some of you may have asked why we don't have a license covering any and all uses of recorded music. We're actively speaking with the major record labels about potential approaches to additional licenses that would be appropriate for the Twitch service. That said, the current constructs for licenses that the record labels have with other services, which typically take a cut of revenue from creators for payment to record labels, make less sense for Twitch. The vast majority of our creators don't have recorded music as part of their streams. Really? Where? Something important to keep in mind here. All those people that can't grow on Twitch, that are literally just playing the video game, or Twitch affiliates that aren't growing, can bias this decision. But out of the bigger creators that I've seen since I've been involved on the platform, just about all of them use music, and I've heard some of them say, falsely, that copyright wasn't a thing on Twitch. Twitch was too small, your VODs would get muted, you would be okay, until all of this mess happened, of course. Vast majority of creators don't have recorded music as part of their streams, and the revenue implications of such a deal are substantial. We're open-minded to new structures that could work for Twitch's unique service, but we must be clear they may take some time to materialize, or may never happen at all. In the meantime, we're focused on building tools to help you manage VODs and clips, and providing licensed music options like Soundtrack while we explore all options. And just so there's no confusion, to music creators, we pay public performance licenses in order for you to perform music live to your communities. You should also avoid using pre-recorded music and disable VODs and clips unless you have the rights to the music and the compositions. We have work to do, and at the same time, we urge you to keep learning about copyrights, etc., etc. There's something that they're doing for Creator Camp and transparency, etc., and that's the article. So, this pretty much looks like something new, but it isn't. A large amount of what's posted here has already... it was either already in the literature for creators, or it went out in the email earlier, or things along those lines. So I think over on Twitter, a couple of commentators like Zach Bussey have been keeping an eye on this sort of thing. Let me go see what kind of stuff he's talking about. I found out about more people getting strikes and more people getting banned, things along those lines. See here. What has Zach been posting on this? Twitch has officially confirmed that those deleted clips that remain on CDNs are not resulting in DMCA strikes. Very glad to see them address this publicly. It's still an issue for privacy, though, and they need to figure that out. Some people believe that this small subset of clips that may exist only in certain parts of Twitch's back-end systems are the subject of DMCA notifications. That is not the case. So here's the thing. The clips that like the one I have linked from Jake and Bake, the problem is not that they're on some back-end system somewhere. This is Deflection. The problem is that it's publicly accessible, that deep linking isn't blocked, which is something really rudimentary to a lot of websites these days. So deep linking is the sort of thing you normally don't want to do. Let me actually try to deep link something on Newegg. So if I go to Newegg.com, I'm actually going to Newegg right now. I'm going to look at something for, how about that as a Be Quiet fan? I want to see if I can link to an asset. Newegg, copy image address. Let me see if I can just go there. Whoops. Close. Close. We still live? I just activated something in Avast. I just added something in Avast. So, all right, Newegg. Oh, here's what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I just went to something for a be quiet. Let's see what this happens here. Okay, so it does work. So I can deep link the image. Okay, but I'm sure Newegg would have a problem with me if I started sapping their bandwidth from doing this. So let's take a look here. Put this on screen too, and let's do browser. So this is me deep linking a picture of a Be Quiet fan that's actually on Newegg.com. I just hit copy image address and stuff like that. Welcome, sign in, register. So this is a Be Quiet fan or something like that. So I mean, I can deep link to this, but you can still see Newegg in here. But there are platforms out there there are websites out there where if you do this, you're going to get an HTTP 503 forbidden error. And it's some kind of thing that's going to say, please, check this out via its web page, or some systems will actually automatically redirect you to the proper web page if it catches you deep linking. So I don't know if it's because it's Newegg, so they're kind of tech savvy to begin with. Let's try CNN or something. Let me see if I can deep link something to CNN. Let me see if I can deep link an image. State Department is preventing Joe Biden from accessing messages from foreign... Oh, that's a video. We don't want to play that. I want a picture. World leaders have congratulated Joe Biden. Oh, it's trying to play something. I don't want that. Justin Trudeau. Let me copy the image address of the Canadian Prime Minister. Shut up, CNN. Thank goodness I'm not streaming on Twitch. Damn this autoplay stuff. I keep getting caught in this Avast bank mode because I keep hitting something. We're going to edit that out, by the way. All that shut up stuff you heard is going to be removed from the spin-off video that I make of this. So yeah. All right, let's go back there again and let's mute the site. Boom. Site muted. Thank you very much. By the way, CNN, I will edit that out in the spin-off video. That will not make it into the stream. All right, so let's try this again. Had to blank that stuff out. We'll be deleting that out of the spin-off video. Darn, CNN had something autoplay. By the way, that's another thing that YouTube has that Twitch doesn't, is the ability to edit stuff after the fact to remove issues like Content ID or something. So there's some audio from CNN that's going to be cut from the version of this, and we will be working on that after tonight's stream. So let's go back to that Joe Biden article. I'm on CNN.com, and I'm trying not to play anything. Mute. Let me actually try to deep link. That's what happened. There's a right-click option that says Open Link in Bank Mode Window. That's what I'm missing here. So that's why I keep accidentally clicking. It's going into bank mode, not showing anything. So I'm trying to deep link to something on CNN. Okay. So even CNN, it might be the case that technology has advanced to the point where website administrators don't care about deep linking anymore to the extent that they did back in the 90s. But you're talking about CNN and you're talking about Newegg. You're talking about businesses here. You're not talking about, say, Jane Twitch streamer or whoever. They accidentally leak their address, and now that clip is deep linkable even if they delete it. That's the issue here. So this stuff that people like, hey, look, you can do this, should not be accessible. Period. There should be an HTTP 503 forbidden error when you try to access it. So, okay, yeah, we'll always put it on screen here. Boom. Picture of Joe Biden, and I'm deep linking to it on a CNN thingy right here. So, it was a faux pas on the internet in the 1990s to do this, but, I'm not linking this on a web page somewhere and sapping CNN's bandwidth. I'm actually browsing CNN to read all of this. And something's playing now, but I've muted the site because heck with CNN and their auto-playing stuff to boost their views. So, but again, the maturity of the platforms means that I can do something to respect the rights holders, like edit that out of the stream after the fact and have the spin-off video not include that. That's an option, one of many, that Twitch streamers do not have, because Twitch doesn't have the technology. So how many more times are we going to be talking about Twitch not having technology that YouTube has before people start to think, you know what, maybe this guy talking in a microphone at 4 a.m. in the middle of the night with sunglasses on because his screen's all the way up because he's a cheap moron, jackass. That's what I was thinking of. He's a cheap jackass that won't get a real studio light. You know what? Let's look at some other tweets from Twitter and mute any dumb stuff that auto plays. We've seen several tweets from creators worried that they received an erroneous strike and how best deal with that. There are a few different situations being referenced, different ways to resolve them. They talk about third-party tools and things along those lines. They advertise GlitchCon, their virtual TwitchCon that's coming up. Things along those lines. If you're unsure about the rights, delete everything. Yeah, because that's all creators can do. As opposed to what I'm going to do after the stream here on YouTube. I love being on Team Red. So, all right. And the rest of it is just advertisements for GlitchCon, which Twitch will probably be advertising all over the place. Because Twitch needs some good publicity right now. But the thing is, Twitch is still Twitch, no matter what. Until they actually change their technological inferiority, they are streams and not much else. They are a company under Amazon that is not in the same position as YouTube under Google. YouTube is basically Google's video service, whereas Amazon has a video service. They don't really need Twitch. So, I wouldn't be surprised. This is just a wild guess, but let's try making predictions here. I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch got spun off if they turned out to be too much of a problem for Amazon. You know what's interesting? And you know what would be really cool? I actually did a radio-style commentary on YouTube about back when YouTube was thinking of buying Twitch. Before Amazon bought Twitch, YouTube actually almost bought Twitch. So you know what? Why don't we do react content to my own commentary from back in the day? And let's actually see. YouTube, Twitch. Oh, that's going to be such a terrible source of YouTube versus Twitch. Twitch is New York. We're going to have to get more specific. YouTube's potential acquisition of Twitch. Might as well turn... there it is. Why don't I turn off monetization on it, too, while we're at it? Let's queue it up and... turn off monetization. Well, turn off monetization so I don't get mid-roll ads. You know, you're also not supposed to cheese the system like this too. So I'm going to disable monetization on this as well for our React session here. Let's give it some time and let's load this up in a different window and let's queue it and put Firefox on the screen and jump because I have the volume in the headset way too loud. Let's see. Q to 000. All right, this is from 2014 Firefox. Good, it didn't show my live control room. Maybe I should like my own video just to be all happy about it and stuff like that. I could always do. I have debate mode on it. Well, it doesn't matter. It's MultimediaJay Radio, as I called it, with MultimediaJay Radio style, the podcast commentaries and stuff back then. But let's turn down the headset volume here and let's make sure it's not too loud over Yeti Nano Audio. And let's do a React segment to round out the stream with this 16-minute discussion from when YouTube almost bought Twitch. May 19th, 2014. Let's get our cold ones ready here. All right.
This is MultimediaJay Radio.
Radio on YouTube. Right.
Set volume to 50%.
You know, it's really surprising sometimes just how quickly certain amounts of time pass between stuff that I do on here or on other sites like WordPress and stuff like that. So I apologize to the blog crew for the second time in a row last night for not posting enough to the blog. And I've just been so wrapped up in computer hardware and stuff that it's just been monopolizing all of this social media / Web 2.0 stuff that I do on here.
That was Ethan Meixel, by the way. YouTube Audio Library. If you want metal, Ethan freaking Meixel. YouTube Audio Library. Had to cut the volume, though, for the sake of headphone users, like myself. But I can hear the compression from... I was still living in DSL country back then, so that's why this video is only in 240p.
But it's back to the microphone once again, despite having been gone for, I think it's been over a month now. So I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. You see, I thought that this kind of stuff, this audio commentary stuff, would be what I was doing on the side, and vlogging would be just a random thing here and there. But it's actually turned out to be the reverse, and I'm vlogging too much. So I intend, and hopefully I can do something about it anyways, maybe look up some more stuff to talk about in terms of audio commentaries and stuff. But I do have something to talk about, namely the proposed deal for YouTube to buy Twitch.
Yeah, you see the difference in the style back then. Don't forget, no streaming gear and no OBS, so no real live way of modding the audio to sound more like I'm on the radio. So this would go into Audacity after the fact and get bass jacked, so to speak.
So if you haven't heard yet, and what exactly is going on with you if you haven't heard this yet, this has been pretty big news. So apparently there's a deal in the works. It's still rumor at this point, but there's a deal in the works for YouTube to buy Twitch, or shall we say Google to buy Twitch, which I do not support. And I think would be the single biggest social media / Web 2.0 disaster of the year if this deal goes through. Now, some people who don't check their facts may say that, oh, it's going to happen, everything's ruined, but it's still very much in the early stages at this point. There are going to be issues with, say, the government. Whatever antitrust alarms are left in Washington will definitely be set off by the largest online video site in the world buying another largest online video site in the world, though it's more niche than YouTube. Yeah, this is going to be interesting to follow and see what goes on, and even more interesting to see what kind of unmerited YouTube drama develops as people gripe at each other about this whole thing. So there were people that thought that it was inevitable that YouTube would buy Twitch back then. They didn't. And think about YouTube in the early 2010s. Streaming had not become what it is today. And it was the sort of thing where it looked like some kind of antitrust thing waiting to happen if YouTube did that, because YouTube didn't have too much, if any, viable competition. There were people out there trying to make viable competition, but they didn't have the money or the resources to do so. So there were just constant issues here. So it's just crazy to think that this almost happened, that Twitch almost wound up as a YouTube product. But then again, would YouTube streaming and live control room even be a thing if that had happened? So who knows? What kind of multi-headed beast, or whatever you want to call it, could there have been with YouTube if this had happened? How many people are going to be out there like, oh, it's the end of Twitch, YouTube's buying it, even before we know for certain that this deal is going to go through? Quite frankly, I think this is a disaster for the Twitch community. Now, I've been involved with Twitch on and off for the past year or so. I do have a Twitch account. I just don't use it because I've been lacking a decent streaming solution up until recently. Supposedly, the NVIDIA Shadow Play that came with my new video card will let me finally set up some stuff on Twitch.
That did not work out at all. NVIDIA Shadow Play was a total disaster when I tried streaming with it. I actually was able to get here at the Geek House with the old Frontier internet that only had 1 meg up. I was able to get standard def 480 streaming working on that ISP. But if anything happened, even if I tripped a Google speaker, the stream would lag because of the lack of upload bandwidth. So this is exactly the sort of thing. Oh man, yeah, memories, man. Yeah, this is from, and it's not like
I wanted to be one of those people that became a streamer because of quarantine in 2020. I've actually been keeping an eye on live streaming for many years. It just took me forever to get the internet to finally do this correctly. But because of coincidence and things like that, that's why we have the problems that we have.
And stream some PC gameplay footage and stuff like that if I wanted to have some like live play some stuff, Twitch events or something along those lines. But considering I'm still trying to just start doing gaming videos again on Daily Motion somehow, yeah.
The problem with gaming videos is that they're kind of a forerunner to Twitch streaming. You think about, for example, anything that's not crafted from scratch, like a how-to guide or something along those lines. What you end up with is essentially a watered-down Twitch stream anyways. So it's one of those things where I was actually fishbowled by YouTube. This is one of the reasons why I don't support fishbowling of any kind when it comes to being on one platform for too long at a time. Because I know what that's like, because there were some things on YouTube I used to get upset about that in hindsight nowadays I think was pretty stupid that I got upset about them in the first place.
Though I don't know, should I even bother with Twitch at this point? Because if we look at the disaster that YouTube has become with all the mess that goes on these days, from the people still playing the system and now making money off of it, to the for-profit trolls, to the cheaters, to the copyright trolls, and the copyright troll companies whose entire business model is based on taking advantage of issues with YouTube's policies. When we look at the very, very, very tangled ball of yarn that YouTube has become these days, oh man, can you imagine Twitch being run the way YouTube is? Yeah, well, I can imagine it, and it is not a good imagining, let me tell you.
Yeah, so that would probably still hold water nowadays, considering the mess that Twitch has been through. If YouTube ran Twitch, that's probably the subject of someone's nightmares these days. There are a lot of people that amounted to something on Twitch in the years since I discussed this because they didn't want to be involved on YouTube for whatever reason. Another important thing to remember, many of the biggest streamers who grew via feedback loop in the late 2010s did so after the YouTube adpocalypse.
Yeah, imagine if you went to watch someone that you really... Oh, no, we're getting a little ahead of things here. So the first time I watched Twitch actually was... I was poking around and I heard about Twitch TV on maybe it was an ad somewhere or some YouTube video or some tech video mentioned Twitch. I went over there and I poked around. I was like, hey, this is a pretty interesting site. Watch people play video games. Twitch basically succeeds where YouTube failed at creating the kind of atmosphere online similar to the offline equivalent of going over a friend's house and playing video games. It's kind of like succeeding where online matchmaking services like Xbox Live have kind of failed. You know, all this online stuff is supposed to be like, oh yeah, if you want to play multiplayer, you can have an experience similar to going over a friend's house and playing video games by not going over a friend's house and playing video games and letting the internet work its internety magic.
This is actually something I talk about nowadays, and it's cool to remember that I was talking about it 6 years ago. That Twitch streaming with some of these game streamers is basically the online internet equivalent of going over a friend's house and watching them play video games. When gaming streamers do this right, they recreate kind of that feeling. And that's one of the ways in which game streamers can appeal to people in that respect. It's interesting that I was talking about this back then, because I was joking in 2012 about going over a friend's house wasn't something you did on the internet. Oh, if only I could have seen what the pandemic would do and how people want to social distance and things like that.
Yeah, I don't think that has worked out all that well. The few times I've tried doing online multiplayer, I've very, very quickly wished to return to single player mode and not come back very often. Whether it was Battlefield 1942, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, other shooters that I've played online, and other sorts of games, even Mario Kart I tried playing Mario Kart DS once, and all the snakers basically owned me. I'm like, yeah, you pretty much can't play online if you're not a master snaker, until snaking got nerfed in Mario Kart Wii. But then of course you'd always get blue shelled all over the place, and yeah, you'd run into those people, and this goes for any kind of online matchmaking. I run into it with World of Warcraft too, and other competitive online games. I probably would run into this if I ever got into League of Legends too. But whenever you go, if you imagine yourself playing an online video game, and it's like going over a friend's house, chilling with your friends, drinking some cold ones, and playing some video games on a nice TV, and it's like, yeah, everyone's chuckling. Even if you lose, they're like, ha, 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 you make a lighthearted joke out about it. But no. You run into the griefers, the spammers, the idiots, everybody who ruins your experience. Those people who obviously spend 16 hours per day playing video games and are practically robots with how they twitch their thumbsticks and kick everyone's ass and take names. I'm so awesome. Yeah, do you do anything besides play Xbox all day? Yeah. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, those people that are like tool-assisted speed runs without being tool-assisted, though they can still sometimes be tools.
Always the bad jokes. It should also be noted that back in these days, I actually watched a speedrun showdowns between like folks like Siglemic and stuff like that, doing speedruns of Mario 64, 70 stars in under an hour or something like that, and split screen stuff. There are some things that game streaming has made possible that even playing games over someone else's house wouldn't have been possible to do, like speedrunning Mario 64 side by side like this. So there are ways in which streaming has broken new ground.
This whole everybody online thing just hasn't really gone the way most of us would have imagined. The kind of online stuff that we may have imagined back in the 90s, when you were cool if you hosted a LAN party on your 10 megabit network, maybe even token ring. We actually tried some of that in high school. Folks would bring in like the Doom shareware for Windows 95 or Quake 3 or something like that, or maybe even Quake 2, but we actually tried some multiplayer. It was a really clunky experience at best over the one or two routers in the entire school. And this is Windows 98, so no real security to keep people from sneaking games and on floppy disks or even shareware. I think we got StarCraft working, and that's pretty much it. But
Computer Gaming Monthly, CD-ROM in every issue with demos. The StarCraft demo was extremely popular.
Okay, off of the tangent here. Twitch is supposed to recreate this kind of experience where you go over a friend's house and play games, only instead of being like online matchmaking, it's you're playing the game and other people are watching you. Now, I've experienced this offline before, going over friends' houses back in the N64 days, folks playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City when I was in college, all this other stuff. And Twitch, I think, has done a somewhat decent job. The first time I watched anything on Twitch was I was actually watching two speedrunners speedrun Mario 64.
Siglemic was one of them.
They were racing each other to 70 stars. I think one of them was called Siglemic or something like that.
There you go.
He has a channel on YouTube. I actually subscribed to him shortly afterwards, but I've yet to watch any more of his speedruns, so wow, I've been one fail of a YouTube subscriber. Epic fail or something like that.
Who even says that anymore?
So I watched these two, and it was fun. And this is the sort of thing you couldn't have done over a friend's house, because unless you had two Nintendo 64s and two TVs and stuff. And but yeah, it was fun. I mean, you watch these. It was a split screen side by side Twitch stream. Actually, maybe it worked because the games were in 4:3, so it didn't really get too nuts if you went widescreen with them. But it actually, it was a very interesting experience watching these two guys absolutely own Mario 64 and actually race each other to see who could get to 70 stars first. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the internet has brought to the world of gaming these days without needing a giant LAN party or a tournament or a mega expensive conference that you have to pay for the tickets, then buy plane tickets to fly out there or be on the road for so many hours one way just to watch a lot of people play video games in like a convention center or something. You know, this is really a marvel.
So it's interesting that I spoiled my own discussion because I still think like this nowadays. And I kind of just got to my talking points before the me from 2014 got to these talking points.
And YouTube wants to buy it. YouTube, the home of the for-profit trolls, the really short videos with really long calls to action at the end of them, where people bug the heck out of you to subscribe and like and favorite every single video, as if that doesn't get annoying.
Yeah, so the YouTube meta in the early 2010s was just as annoying as it is today. I think the only thing that's been added in since then is the emphasis on any kind of in-video advertising, which is something I routinely skip.
YouTube, the home of the copyright trolls and the other assorted trolls, and all the trolls that have been trolling up YouTube for years, abusing YouTube systems wherever they can, things like that. This is the sort of entity that wants to buy Twitch. Oh, I can imagine what an absolute disaster that would be. Imagine if one day you fired up some Twitch streamer person that you really like. You go and watch them going through like some game or something like that, and maybe their audio gets muted. This has been muted because of copyright issues, something like that. Can you imagine Content ID on Twitch?
Yes, I can. I think it would be better than what Twitch currently has. It's interesting that we talk about things getting muted, because this is back in the days when Warner Music and other rights holders would go on muting sprees with DMCA stuff on YouTube. The point is, though, there was an alternative to strikes. So they didn't have to have these systems that automated sending strikes out, because that's the only way to do anything about your content showing up on a platform like this. Again, the lack of technology. These days, I think Twitch would be in a better place if YouTube actually bought Twitch, because then they would have the technology that YouTube has developed, and they wouldn't be such a technological runt of the litter, so to speak.
How much would that ruin Twitch? Yeah. I really, really think that YouTube needs to get its own house in order before making acquisitions. Hint, hint.
It must take time for these things to go through. No, seriously, this is just nuts. Camera only, please. Get through this, and we'll mute this as well. Yeah, this is it's a 15-second non-skippable, which is one of the things that I'm doing for my channel these days. I turned off monetization. Why is there still an ad playing? Do I have to ad block my own video or something? Whatever. It's probably the only mid-roll in there. But it was only a 15-second ad, though. That's one of the big things I'm trying out this month. I want to see how much the revenue tanks by only doing unskippable ads, because they have a length limit and higher CPMs according to YouTube. What matters to me is the length limit. Those of you that have seen advertisers essentially sending videos around YouTube via the ad system, you'll know what I'm talking about and why I'm trying to find a remedy for that with regards to the balance between letting YouTube pay its bills versus, or try to pay its bills anyways, versus not being able to walk away from your computer for something like, say, this radio style thing that we're listening to. So you have a situation where you can't just leave this playing because some gigantic ad will interrupt the entire listening experience. So that's what my experiment is. I try and only non-skippables because they have a length limit. YouTube should take notice and have the skippables, make it so you can set a max ad length for any advertisement that plays on any videos. All right, let's fire this back up.
No, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Yeah. Twitch running like YouTube. And of course, it's obvious why they'd want to do this. YouTube kind of sort of isn't that great of a place to put up gameplay footage of any sort. The Let's Players do it, but it's a clunky process. You got to record the thing and talk over it and edit it and upload it. And if you're not in one of the gifted parts of the world that actually has broadband that isn't total garbage, you have to pretty much upload while you sleep in order to have it uploaded within a couple hours, in order to not tie up your internet connection for hours on end. So,
speaking from experience making YouTube videos in DSL country for years,
yeah, it's a bit of an issue. And I think Twitch really answers what the Let's Play community has really wanted all along. All these Let's Players out there are like, hey, come watch me play video games, listen to my commentary, be entertained by me responding. Or wait a minute, does PewDiePie have a Twitch channel? I mean, the guy's format is just so belongs on Twitch instead of watching in installments as he uploads them. This is totally like, hey, bros, wow, watching. That does not sound at all like PewDiePie. Hey, bros, watch out, this is PewDiePie.
Yeah, lurking deep within my channel is my pathetic attempt at a PewDiePie impression, and now it's part of this stream. Whatever.
I shall give up trying to impersonate the most popular dude on YouTube,
who is now a popular YouTube streamer in 2020, and one of the success stories on the platform.
Because apparently I can't impersonate the guy without making him sound like he's 60. Right. Anyways, so can you imagine PewDiePie? Yeah, does he have a Twitch channel? I mean, it just seems like the guy's, hey, come watch me play these games and watch me react to them. It just seems like that Twitch.tv would be exactly where he should be instead of, or maybe it's because of all of his subscribers on YouTube that he still does all his YouTube stuff. It just seems like maybe YouTube's holding this guy back and he should be tearing up Twitch at this point.
That would be the me from 2014 that had zero concept of multi-platform content creation, which is now hawked all over the place by all these Twitch people who don't want to acknowledge that Twitch has inferiorities compared to YouTube. Right. There I am going back to being a Team Red fanboy.
Anyways, what's going to be the point of any of this if Twitch is acquired by YouTube? I mean, yeah, YouTube doesn't really have an answer to Twitch. You can Let's Play on YouTube, but it's a clunky process at best, and you don't get the real-time feedback. So it's not entirely like going over a friend's house and watching him play video games, because you can't be like, no, you idiot, the power-up's over there. Hell, come on, man, get this power-up. How could you miss that? Yeah, man, awesome. You don't get the kind of real-time feedback that you would get. That you would, should not do these videos after supper. You don't get that kind of feedback.
Something's never changed.
You would get from having friends over, kicking back on a big comfy sofa, blasting the TV and the speakers, and taking the blowing the dust out of the subwoofer. I wasn't gonna say taking the subwoofer for a spin, but blowing dust out of the subwoofer is often what folks try to do. Let's see what's built up since the last time I blasted the living room with this stuff. Yeah. So. It's something to consider. You know, I really don't think that anything good could come of YouTube acquiring Twitch. They really need to look at cleaning their own house first. And any backlash against YouTube acquiring Twitch right now should be a wake-up call to YouTube. If these issues that bother people about YouTube were addressed, maybe this would be a lot more easily stomached by the Web 2.0 video public. I don't want to say general public because a lot of folks don't really pay attention to this stuff. You really got to be a nerd like me or the folks that do this stuff to really chime in on something like this. But
May 19th, 2014. When did Susan Wojcicki become CEO of YouTube? I think it was February. Susan was CEO of YouTube since what? Wikipedia. Longest tenured CEO in the history of YouTube. Assumed office February 5th, 2014. So she had just become CEO barely a few months before I had this discussion. And one of the critiques of her being in charge of YouTube is that she always seems to be just spouting non sequiturs on social media and not dealing with any real issues on YouTube as a platform. So here I am 2014 saying the same stuff. Like, yeah, YouTube doesn't want to address these long-running issues. And Susan had just become CEO a couple months before I had this discussion.
But yeah, it's maybe really YouTube's focus should be inward. Now, I realize that that Google's involved here since this is YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah, Google's involved, and Google has this thing for trying to buy stuff that they really can't come up with a decent competitor to. Like, for example, buying YouTube after Google Video didn't put a dent in YouTube's viewership. And
that's the key difference between Google and YouTube and Twitch and Amazon. Amazon Video is still a thing. There's still a service out there, despite Amazon owning Twitch. Twitch is not in the same position under Amazon as YouTube is under Google's. It might be more of a fair comparison if Google had tried to keep Google Video going, but they clearly didn't.
Yeah, tends to be exactly the sort of thing, actually, that YouTube tends to do. So maybe it's not entirely unexpected, but it's certainly not good for Twitch. I really hope that something stops this deal, because otherwise I fear for the future of Twitch. I mean, are people really going to want to put up with the nonsense that regularly shows up on YouTube on a site like Twitch?
The answer is no, as evidenced by the streaming scene that has blown up on Twitch, particularly since the adpocalypse. Many big streamers on Twitch nowadays enjoyed their first surges of growth in the late 2010s. What also happened in the late 2010s? The adpocalypse, which drove, and this is what created the kind of feedback loop that really grew these creators to what they are today, is getting the best of all platforms. Back when Twitch wasn't so hopelessly overloaded with people trying to be streamers that they can't actually provide an audience for everybody streaming on the platform. The branding works too well. So many people who want to be streamers are trying to be streamers that there's not enough people watching most of the creators who are trying to become streamers. And that is but one of many design choices and leadership choices that leads to Twitch being the most elitist platform out there. And yet, you see these big streamers who can, like, breathe the wrong way and get a couple thousand concurrents, and they act like spoiled, entitled babies who can't handle other people's opinions or criticism. Such irony.
Actually, I think that would be the cue that maybe it's time for some competition to Twitch. Much like maybe Dailymotion could, like, start something. I don't know.
Oh, if only I knew that YouTube would actually develop their own stream. Well, this is before the original iteration of YouTube Gaming, which was basically a Twitch copycat. What we've seen with YouTube streaming in this second iteration is YouTube trying to forge its own path as a streaming service and not just copy Twitch. Because when you just copy and do a Me Too product, as it's called in marketing, the most you can be is a crappy knockoff of something else instead of doing something really special. And I think YouTube actually needs to speak up a bit more and advertise their more mature systems for rights management versus what Twitch has, in order to appeal to more people who are on the fence as to Twitch streaming versus YouTube streaming.
But I don't see anything good coming of an acquisition of Twitch by YouTube. And who knows, maybe I shouldn't bother with doing anything on Twitch. With how YouTube's become, do I really want to get involved on Twitch if it's about to become a subsidiary? I'm gonna have to think about that. Maybe you folks can think about this too. This is definitely something to think about. Thanks for listening, everybody. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by. I need to stop shouting so much in these things. After all, the microphone is right here.
"2014, ladies and gentlemen." Ooh, look, John Oliver thing. ABC News, the bell curve discussion, something related to Pokemon, one of my prior streams and other stuff. Yeah, and that 14 and that song about the tribute to the former frontman of Alice in Chains. Yeah, I shared that on Twitter as well. Okay, let's turn the monetization back on for the video and let's conclude the discussion here. So, of course, skippable ads are turned off. I'm surprised I didn't get a post roll or something. Oh, I forgot to hit save. That's why. I didn't hit save. It's like when I go to print something at the 9 to 5 and I'm like, how come this isn't printing? And I'm over here like, hold on a second. Potential acquisition. Just want to make sure the monetization status is still. So that's what yeah, okay. Forgot to turn it off. It's like when I go to print something and I do everything except hit the print button and I wonder why it doesn't print. Whatever. So, yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting how the way I am with commentary and stuff has changed in the last several years. But that's really the thing. I think Twitch would have been better off under YouTube in today's environment. So, one more administrative thing. Let's ban this guy who stopped by and was like, ha ha, only 2 people are watching you. Goodbye. You are so incapable of seeing the big picture or actually acknowledging that YouTube is what it is, which is an evergreen platform, and streams like this are made to exist as videos after the fact. Thank you very much for your complete non sequitur comment, and goodbye. So the thing is with all this Twitch stuff is that Twitch has a lot of technology that they got to catch up with, but until that happens, what do? The answer is PR, obviously. And we've seen all the stuff going around. We probably could dig up some creator camp or something along those lines. There's probably something that I could do some digging on to get some more information about what's going on with DMCAmageddon. But as it stands, I just can't recommend, especially with this deep linking thing. So long as this deep linking thing remains a thing, I cannot at all recommend Twitch as anything other than a sidecar, and a very limited sidecar at that. Just do gaming stuff and not much else. Stick to Twitch's bread and butter. Don't get your personal life involved. Put that stuff on YouTube. Stream on YouTube if you want to be an IRL person, because as it stands, I think it's just like something I've been doing recently with my involvement on Discords. I rejoined some of the Discords that I mass left last week because it occurred to me that I am under no obligation to take part in anybody's community, but I can always show up in the members lists. So my decision is that all of those Discords that I left because I didn't want to put up with their stuffy rules list, I'm rejoining, but I'm just going to be a lurker. And the minute somebody has any kind of stuffy rules list, I shut up. Because why risk getting banned? This is the kind of deterrent that Twitch now has to deal with. There's just too many people that are just not going to be making content because they're too worried about it. And quite frankly, this is going to dull the living daylights out of Twitch's content, except on, like those music channels are constantly plugging or something like that. This is the sort of thing that is going to hold Twitch back versus competing against YouTube and Facebook, who both have reasons other than streaming for people to be there. So I think what we're seeing here is Twitch having a situation where they don't want to acknowledge the issues with the platform, but they want to look like they're doing something. So classic business peacocking 101. And that, as they say, is that with that. Way better, I think, than just ranting about having a bad night and being like, okay, good night. But I hope this brings more to the table in terms of thoughtful, honest, thought-out commentary that nobody's going to watch. So, social media is youtube.com/MultimediaJay, twitter.com/MultimediaJay, twitch.tv/MultimediaJay, multimediajay.wordpress.com, and MultimediaJayTV on Instagram. The sun is coming up soon, and with that, the horrible night will be vanquished, or whatever that text in Castlevania 2 said back in the day. But Twitch DMCAmageddon. It's like a piece of chewing gum. You put it in your mouth, start chewing on it, and the more you chew on it, the bigger and fluffier it gets. That's kind of what this whole situation has turned into. Anywho, till next time, this is Multimedia Jay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.